In the years since Caroline had last seen her son, Prince Frederick, he had undergone a troubling transformation. He had become a debauched person, indulging in drinking, gambling, and maintaining several mistresses. Yet the most alarming aspect was not his behaviour. Frederick harboured a deep resentment for his absent parents, and perhaps as a karmic twist related to Caroline's own actions as the Princess of Wales, he swiftly aligned himself with her political adversaries, if only it had ended there. Over the years, Caroline's political astuteness remained as sharp as ever. She even urged her husband to maintain their complicated relationship with Robert Walpole, recognising his substantial influence and desiring to remain in his favour. Starting in 1728, this political acumen paid off handsomely. During King George II's absence, it was Caroline who acted as regent, not her wayward son. Yes, only Caroline of Ansbach could devise a way to solidify her influence and simultaneously slight her son. However, it was a decision that would soon backfire. In 1736, King George II was once again away, and Caroline was serving as regent. This time, things took a disastrous turn. A detractor of the king and queen posted a note at the royal palace gate, and it read, "Lost or strayed out of this house, a man who has left a wife and 6 children." It marked one of the first signs of unrest against Caroline's sway over George, and the situation was on the verge of escalating dramatically. When King George II finally attempted to return his post in England several months later, a series of misfortune nearly spelled catastrophe. First, his ship encountered a storm, leading to rumours in London that the king had perished. Upon his return, matters only worsened as he collapsed into illness upon reaching his bed. Caroline must have been riddled with anxiety, but her son Frederick saw it as a ruthless opportunity. While Frederick inherited his mother's disdain for the older generation, he had none of her political finesse. Everything he did was grandiose and brash. For instance, Frederick rapidly propagated another rumour that the king had truly passed away, prompting King George II to rise from his feverish haze and prove that he was still alive. At this juncture, Caroline and George recognised that they needed to address their troublesome son. However, their solution would prove to be calamitous. Possibly hoping that marriage would temper her son's behaviour, Caroline had wed Frederick to 16-year-old Princess Augusta of Saxe-Gotha just before the shipwreck debacle. Yet this union did not quell his rebelliousness. It merely provided him with a new pawn to employ in his efforts to antagonize his parents. At one point, he instructed the naive Augusta to arrive at the chapel after Queen Caroline, forcing her to rudely nudge the consort aside to claim her seat. It was a petty irritation Frederick took great pleasure in. However, his next move would propel this feud to ludicrous extremes. When Frederick's new wife became pregnant, he devised another scheme to exact revenge on his mother and father. As soon as he learned of Augusta's labour, he initiated a ruthless plot. He compelled the princess to undertake a nocturnal journey to a remote palace for the birth of their baby daughter, on a tablecloth, no less, as the palace was unprepared to receive her. Why did he do this? To ensure that his parents would not be present for the birth of their grandchild. When Caroline discovered this, her response was unrelenting. Caroline was no stranger to the realm of familial discord, and despite her horror at Frederick's actions, she managed to deliver a scathing insult of her own. You see, royal births typically had numerous witnesses, primarily to ensure the legitimacy of the child, especially if it was a boy and not some sort of changeling. Upon learning that it was a baby girl, Caroline breathed a sigh of relief and commented that it was a poor, ugly little she-mouse, rather than a large, fat, healthy boy. However, her response didn't end with words alone. Attempting to exclude one's royal parents from the line of succession is not advisable, and Caroline and King George II ensured that their son faced severe consequences for his actions. They exiled him from their court, mirroring the same actions taken against them by the previous king. Consequently, parents and son were officially estranged from one another. Remarkably, despite all the preceding tension, the situation managed to become even more awkward. Frederick grew up without a mother's influence, so perhaps he can be forgiven for not fully comprehending the extent of her vindictiveness. Over time, Caroline and George not only openly favoured their younger son, Prince William, but also explored methods to divide the inheritance in a way that would minimise Frederick's share of their holdings. Around this period, Caroline uttered statements that can never be taken back. Caroline's deep-seated animosity towards her son was evident, and she did not hold back her caustic remarks. It is reported that she once expressed, "I wish the ground would open this moment and sink the monster to the lowest hole in hell," or when speaking of Frederick's long-suffering wife Augusta, "Poor creature, were she to spit in my face, I would only pity her for being under such a fool's direction, and wipe it off." Motherhood, particularly with a son like Frederick, clearly did not suit Caroline. It would also prove to be her downfall. In 1724, when Caroline gave birth to her final child, she experienced a significant umbilical hernia. More than a decade later, this condition resurfaced in the most dreadful way possible. Following a formal reception in the winter of 1737, Caroline was in excruciating pain and confined to her bed. Alarmingly, a portion of her intestine had protruded through the old hernia opening, putting her life at risk. This marked the beginning of a period of desperation. King George II's love for his wife remained unwavering, and he implored the royal physicians to undertake a series of treatments in hope of curing her. However, despite various medical procedures, purging and bloodletting, Caroline's suffering only intensified. Recognizing that her end was near, Queen Caroline decided to enact one of her final acts of vengeance. Throughout this period, Caroline's son, Frederick, desperately sought the chance to see his dying mother one last time. Her response was chilling. Directed by his wife, King George II forbid Frederick from visiting Caroline, although the Queen Consort later relented and sent a message indicating her forgiveness. That note likely carried a touch of passive aggression. But soon her demeanour turned downright aggressive. Caroline's last moments on earth were marked by excruciating pain. Her strangulated bowel ruptured on the 17th of November 1737, and she writhed in agony for 4 more days before passing away on the 20th, at the age of 54. Yet there was a parting victory. As attendants prepared to lay her to rest in Westminster Abbey, she remained certain that her son Frederick was not invited to the funeral. Amid her painful demise, Caroline received the love of her husband. King George II reportedly wept by her bedside as she slipped away. When she urged him to remarry after her passing, he protested, stating, "No, I shall have mistresses," to which she retorted, "My God, that doesn't prevent it." When King George II followed her in death 23 years later, he was laid to rest in a matching coffin beside her. Not all of her relationships found such closure. In the end, all of Caroline's conflicts with her son, Prince Frederick, came to naught. Not only had she passed into history, but Frederick did not live long enough to ascend to the British throne. In 1751, at the age of 44, he likely succumbed to a pulmonary embolism, leaving his son, Caroline's grandson, to become King George III instead. Caroline's intellect and curiosity made her one of the most captivating women of her era, and she found herself at the forefront of many 18th century debates and advancements. She corresponded with the renowned philosopher Gottfried Leibniz and held salons for writers like Jonathan Swift. However, her most enduring intellect legacy had a darker side. During that period, medical practitioners were exploring new methods for inoculating against deadly diseases like smallpox, the very ailment that claimed Caroline's father. Caroline supported this research by initially testing the potentially perilous inoculation on condemned prisoners and subsequently using it on her own children, including Frederick. Did it prove effective? Yes. Does it offer some insight into Caroline's parenting approach? Just a bit. Caroline's political and emotional sway over King George II, as well as her role in the family feuds, constitutes her enduring legacy. Her influence was widely recognised during her time, and an uncomplimentary purring remark, "You may strut Dapper George, but 'twill all in vain. We all know 'tis Queen Caroline, not you that reign. Then if you would have us fall down and adore you, lock up your fat spouse, as your dad did before you."